Oh man, what's up, everybody? I want to do a few quick shout outs before we get into the stream. Before we get into these topics, we got a lot of information for you today. A lot of great topics today. But of course, we want to make sure we get all of them. But I am on somewhat of a time crunch, not a major one, but I do got a previous engagement that I got to get to. Let me do these shout outs. We are live right now on both YouTube and Rockfin. President Jafar got first. Shout out to President Jafar. Angel U. Ren Sten, Dirtbag. Ruben Massagua. Man, I feel like I ain't seen you in the chat in a minute. Ruben, where you been at, man? Convo Couch can't stream. Since when? Did I miss that? They were streaming last night. Whatever, man. Yeah, I know. It was bad. It was definitely Dismantles. I watched half of it last night, finished watching it this morning. Like, whoo, man. It was actually hard to sit through. Not necessarily because of Brie, but kind of because of Brie, because like it was like watching somebody. It was like watching an MMA fighter beat up a high school wrestler after the high school wrestler, like a UFC, professional UFC fighter, probably the heavyweight champion, beating up on a featherweight high school wrestler who thought that fighting was his dream until he was schooled accordingly. But that's basically what it was like. Trashman Jake, Emblem Faith, Jay Corona, Fred Edward, Little Rock Elevators, Alex. I feel like I got just about everybody. Don't worry. You can I'll shout you out throughout the show if you drop super chat if I missed you. All right. And we got Luther De Papier or De Papier on Rockfin. And we got Fred Edward on Rockfin as well. Got a few people watching over there. Don't forget, if you want to watch on Rockfin, all you have to do is go scan that link right there. It is free to sign up for Rockfin. Don't forget, it's free to sign up for Rockfin. Now, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning in to this live stream segment of Mikase Sukasa. And of course, as always, I am your humble host, Niko House. We have a great show for you today, full of a lot of information. We're going to have some fun. We're going to laugh a bit. We're going to be a little sad considering Hank Aaron just passed away. And we're going to drop some knowledge, all right? So for the first part of our show, for the first segment for our show, rather, we're going to look at just one of these clips. And I'm going to delve into the interview at large, but I just want to show y'all how it was going. One clip, in my opinion, embodies basically the three in the some hour discussion between Briahna Joy Gray and Sam Seder on her podcast, her and Virgil, I should say, in the Bad Faith podcast. All right. So let's go ahead and check out that clip real quick. Whew, all right. Buckle in, buckaroos. Nope. Make sure y'all can hear first. I feel like y'all couldn't hear that. If you could hear it, let me know. But I feel like y'all couldn't hear it because I didn't see anything. Nope, and you were not going to hear it. Now you'll be able to hear it. Let's go.
Clip. You should watch but I have seen so I don't want to talk about stuff that is not germane to this issue and is not being represented on the book.
You asked me why I didn't get involved, and I'm telling you.
That is fair. We are all very clear that you personally don't think that Jimmy Dore is a worthwhile vessel for this. You think that it's worth throwing away.
I think he was using it in a destructive way, and that
Jimmy Dore was using it in a destructive way, and it tainted it. So, what I'm saying, and I hear you. I think that everyone understands your point of view.
I think the argument that you're having with everybody about Jimmy Dore is proof of my that he tainted it.
I'm trying desperately, can I tell you, to stop talking about Jimmy Dore, because 15 million people lost their health insurance this past year, and I can't get you to focus on that issue for more than 5 minutes.
Hey, no, because you want. Listen, I
Yeah, man, that was basically how the debate went, more or less. What you saw there is the culmination of Brie's frustration and Sam Seder's dishonest distraction. Once again, using Jimmy Dore to try and distract from the issue of healthcare. And what's so crazy about this? So like let's just, first of all, let's just address what was said here. Oh man, yeah, Jimmy, I didn't join because of Jimmy Dore. Oh God. Okay, so hold up. You didn't join. You have what? He has 1 million subscribers, or almost 1 million. If you combine the platforms that he's on, he probably has well over 1 million. Gets well over several, probably 10 to 15 million views a month. Has over 100,000 subscribers or followers on Twitter. You have this huge platform where you could have taken energy from a movement about healthcare, because you're progressive supposedly. So you take this energy for a movement about healthcare, and you could have redirected that into a direct action that took place regardless of whether or not you helped, but the direct action took place nonetheless. And you could have boosted that significantly, but because you don't like Jimmy Dore, that means you can't reappropriate your movement and that energy behind whatever the hell you do over there. Apparently he's a comedian, which still waiting to hear the joke there, other than the fact that he claims to be a comedian. But you could have taken that and put it there, and you chose not to because of Jimmy. So screw everybody who needs healthcare because of Jimmy Dore. That's basically what Sam said. All right. And Brie, I'm very thankful she held, Sam has this habit of running away from debates with leftists. I don't know if y'all know that. Now what his fans will tell you is no, people call into his show all the time. Yeah, but when I call in with, like, so when you call into someone's show and to have a discussion, what ultimately ends up happening is that there's a bias that automatically has to be acknowledged out the gate. I'm not in control of the phone lines. You get to talk over me. You get to silence my channel, or like my audio whenever you want. And you get to talk over me with your audio because you have the professional studio set up. Your moderator or whoever is moderating that chat can hang up when they feel like it. It is not a bilateral and honest debate, because there's an inherent advantage just perception wise, just optics wise. And then people will tend to lean towards the idea, oh, this guy's a super professional studio with all these credentials, quote unquote. So I'm going to take his word for it rather than some random caller, even if that caller is legit, right? Now, when you're both on a debate like this, where Virgil, I would probably consider to be in the middle of both of them, is moderating it, making sure things don't get out of hand, and you are forced to answer in real time in a situation you can't control, where you can't control the questions being asked, because what he does is he tries to redirect conversations by asking dumb questions and making ridiculous premises. Like, that's what Sam has always done. And when he was finally forced, because Brie I would consider Brie a step above Sam Seder as far as her influence in the progressive movement. So you already have to recognize her as a fellow progressive with equitable clout, where it could help you if you get this correct. It could hurt you if you deny a debate here, and you know this because of how popular Brie is. So Brie using her platform in order to expose this fallacious logic that we should keep people from having healthcare because, oh, Jimmy Dore was mean to me one time, is brilliant. Because that's one of the things I try to do. And I don't debate. I don't really care who I'm debating. I'll debate anybody, big platform, small platform. I've debated on RT before, on Ben Swan's show. And for the most part, That's how we should all be. But what you've tended to see, in my opinion, is unwillingness from the left to genuinely engage the left on issues they disagree with. They either attack each other, throwing sticks from afar or throwing rocks from afar, or they ignore each other. That's it. No one ever wants to debate on the substance of policy, on the substance of strategy. And this is why. Because there are two sides to the left. There's the honest side and there's Sam Seder's side. That's why. Brie just exposed that. You ever wonder why there are a lot of people who have talked blue checks, neo-progressives, who talk shit to me on Twitter, who've made videos about me, mention me by name, won't keep my name out their mouths. Jordan Sheridan being one. David, what's the fuck asshole's name? Nat Rational National, Mr. Canadian with healthcare, telling everybody, go ahead and vote for the guy who will veto healthcare. Anna Kasparian, Emma Vigilant, all these people. But none of them will debate me. And this is why. Fiorella, Pasta, they've also had asked for people to come on. Okay, if you disagree with me, then debate me over it. Nope, won't do it. Why? Because this is why. You will find out the more if you go back and watch that whole stream, by the way, and I strongly encourage you to do so, you will find out that not only does Sam Seder and his ilk, the people like him, not only are they acting in bad faith, no pun intended, given as Brie's podcast, but not only are they acting in bad faith, but simultaneously they have zero idea how any of this stuff actually works. They have no concept of political history and the intersectionality of contemporary politics and movements and how it relates to or was started by some of the historic movements and historic strategies that have already been used. We're simply re-implementing them or saying we should re-implement them. He has zero idea how any of this stuff works. And you really don't get to see Sam's logic challenged in real time. Because I know Michael used to challenge him occasionally when it came to things only inexplicitly about the DNC's relationship with Bernie Sanders, and that's it. But you never get to see Sam challenged. Why? Because the neo-progressive movement has this weird fetish with protecting basic bitch white guys. Or just white people in general. I want you to think about this for me. And we're going to engage a little bit more with some of Sam's logic here, but just bear with me for a second. I need you to understand something, people. I'm going to go over some of Brie's credentials. Brie was a successful lawyer. Could be if she decided to go back. Brie became an even more successful journalist for The Intercept and was one of their senior editors. Okay. Brie also was the press secretary for probably the most popular campaign in the history of the country and handled it damn near flawlessly. Very few slip-ups. Kept her progressive cred the entire time, staying true to herself after that. Okay. Now, I know some people would think, well, of course, that's common sense for that she, as brilliant as she is, would have a resume like that. And it matches up with her base, right? Or her following, the clout she has. No, see, here's the thing. Sam Seder on the other side has never actually done anything in politics to any significant degree. Has never been hired as a professional strategist or a consultant for any reason. Has never been the engine behind any campaign, big or small. He got a special guest appearance on the Gilmore Girls as a comedian actor. A few appearances on MSNBC where nobody understands why he's there. And a YouTube show. Now, understand, it is only because of Briahna's incredible resume that Sam would even think that Brie is worth her time or his time. But it's also only because of her incredible resume that she has this clout. Why the hell does Sam Seder have any influence over it? Why is his channel so massive? Why are people simping for him to such a disgusting degree? And how could he possibly be seen on the same level in any way, form, or fashion as Brie? But once again, it goes back to what I have been saying, that a lot of people have either, ignored because they don't want to believe it, or choose to ignore because they know there's a lot of truth behind it. In this particular progressive space, I don't know what you want to classify it as, but if you know, right? A lot of people consider, me, Brie, Sam, Convo, George Sheridan, and Emma Vigilant, and Annika, like there is a space that is occupied that everybody or in an ecosystem that everybody is aware exists, unless you're new to this scene, but I know what I'm talking about. I need y'all to understand something. Out of the people that I just named, like if we're just going to talk about who is qualified to have a lot of these political strategy discussions, to be considered to be authorities on a lot of these issues, I need y'all to really truly get where I'm coming from here, because this isn't a place of ego. This is a place of reality, because, and I'm bringing it up because I know that I've talked to black people and minorities and women who understand exactly what I'm talking about, and that's why I feel comfortable bringing up this conversation I had earlier today. There is no one more qualified to talk about any of these issues right now than just political strategy and things like that, than myself and Brie. Now, understand something. Do we have the biggest channels? No, we don't. Like, Brie has a huge following, of course, on Twitter, but that doesn't necessarily translate to YouTube. It doesn't always translate to YouTube. Brie had to have the best of the best of the best resume to get where she's at right now, and still be disrespected and attacked as an Uncle Tom or whatever whenever one of these neo-progressives don't like what she says. And it's never about the strategy. They never bring up her resume. They immediately attack her character, her age. If y'all don't know, I have a pretty extensive resume too, right? Ran the largest Bernie's club in the country in 2016, was the acting state director for his campaign in North Carolina in 2016 until literally the last month before the election. Started the DNC fraud lawsuit, been a political consultant, been a political strategist, been a speechwriter for people, okay? Like, I've been in health insurance. So a lot of these issues, once again, I'm more qualified than just about everybody else in the YouTube space as far as this particular ecosystem. More qualified than most people. And I had to be overqualified to the umpteenth degree before anyone would take me a little seriously. You get what I'm saying? Brie couldn't just win this debate. Brie had to utterly destroy Sam Seder, because anything else would have resulted in, well, Brie's just, a part of the dumb left, and she just doesn't understand Sam's, his complex intellectualism. That's what would have happened. That's exactly what would have happened. I don't understand how Sam could have come into this debate so unprepared. But I do understand, because I deal with the same thing all the time. Because they see Brie as some young little girl who just is famous for throwing her pom-poms around for Bernie, and that's not the case. Like, Brie is extremely intelligent and very successful. But Sam Seder has 800, 900,000 subscribers with no resume. And this is why I was joking with Robbie Yeager earlier. Shout out to Robbie. I was like, looking at this debate, I was like, damn, Brie just killed Sam. And as hype as I was about that, on the other side of that coin, there's the reality of man, the left we are in trouble. We are in trouble. Because if Sam Seder, with no credentials, with these horrible, pitiful arguments against healthcare in the middle of a pandemic, in the arguments we'll get into in a second, but with these horrible arguments, I'm supposed to be okay with the direction the left is going? Because if he has any influence over the left, we are a failed movement. If he has any clout within the left, we are a failed movement. Sam Seder should be a laughing stock. If you had to choose between the two, Brie would be considered, in my opinion, the face of the quote unquote modern left. If we're going to say off of equal playing ground, people within the relative, have a relatively large platform, they have pretty equal opportunities to influence leftist spaces. I would say that Brie should be and would be considered the face more so than Sam would be, but for some reason, we see what Sam is, and yet he still has this ridiculously large platform. And don't get it twisted. Like, Brie is fine. Like, she doesn't need this massive platform. Like, cause she could, like I said, she could go be a lawyer. There's a lot of things she could do. But like, she's busy organizing a Force to Vote initiative. I don't know if y'all seen, she had the Force to Vote Slack channel where they just organize for Medicare for All. That's what she's doing. Like, y'all know my organization. Like, I still organize, still help candidates, still help activists. Like, what the fuck does Sam do? Why is y'all see my frustration here? This is why when people ask me, Niko, why don't you run for office? Because we got to fix this shit. We don't have a chance to understand the mandate for a progressive comes from the movement. The movement comes from energy. The energy only can be gathered through the awareness of any given issue and then the subsequent mobilization over any issue. That mobilization tends to come from media. How is it being covered? How is it being discussed? Is it being discussed in a positive light? Are the debates healthy and in good faith? Are they being moderated correctly? Are we being able to discuss facts? Or are we getting into personalities? All these things matter. Who has the money, the power, and the influence to set the standard and the stage for what will be discussed? Because a lot of people have discussions and have debates and cover topics based off of what will bring them the most money and the most clout. Now, in order for that to happen, the people with the biggest channels have to be discussing the right issues in the right way. But Sam Seder has almost 1 million subscribers. That's why I can't just go run for office and expect everything to be okay. Because right after he gets done kissing Bernie's ass as usual, he's going to tell you to vote for a segregationist sex pest. Whereas Brie said, nah, I think instead I would rather organize for healthcare. I think I'm going to spend my time doing that. And we're wondering why the movement has looked like another failure. North American Ape, thank you very much for the super chat. Sam is a dude who wants to have a 3-point shootout with Rondo, but stay dodging Curry or Harden. This is why these fools don't debate folks on their left. But nah, you're 100% correct. 100% correct. That is exactly what the issue is. They'll go in there and debate some right-wing nut from the Republican Party who doesn't understand the nuance of any of this stuff. And then will avoid conversation with the left because, to be frank, this is how it ends up, isn't it? Anyone who's seen me debate leftists, I would say my most recent debate with Ben Burgess was probably, I guess, the most challenging, but even that one wasn't difficult at all. Because when you're a real leftist who live and breathe this shit, you understand that anything to the quote unquote right of you is just someone who doesn't have the knowledge, experience, and background and understanding of what's going on. This idea of being leftist isn't even, it's not an ideological thing. This is a liberty thing. This is I have the liberty to make coherent, articulate, and accurate arguments because I understand what's really going on. And that gives me the liberty and the freedom to engage in good faith. And that is why I consider those arguments, quote unquote, leftist arguments. In other words, if you are a true leftist, there is no one to the right of you who can beat you in a debate. I mean, if you're used to having open conversations and back and forth, stuff like that. Obviously, there's some people who are not, they're just not good debaters or good at having conversations and things like that. But I mean, like any type of debate, like conversational, professional, anything. Because if you, once again, if you have the information, you have the liberty and autonomy to argue in good faith, and your information will always expose how corrupt this system is, and any argument in the defense of the status quo of this system is insufficient. And Brie once again proved that. One of the arguments that Sam Seder made, ladies and gentlemen, he said, I actually don't believe that having Medicare for all during this pandemic would result in any type of tangible improvement. Think about that. Now, Brie just kind of like laughed that off, like, because I mean, how do you even engage with that? That, like, once again, how do you even engage with that with a serious face? Because now, where you thought that something would have been obvious, where you thought there was an obvious point, like, okay, now I gotta address this. We're like, this is like the debate was on they were having two different conversations basically. But yeah, that had to be addressed. Now I'm gonna address it too, because Brie didn't really have that much time to address that particular point. But ladies and gentlemen, do you understand that a lot of the best way, the proven method to prevent COVID, to survive COVID, is preventative measures, right? There are a few preventative measures you could have taken, which would include hydroxychloroquine and zinc, interferon alpha 2B was the best preventative medication that I had seen so far. There are some people now who take ivermectin now in advance before things get, even if they think they came into contact with somebody, they'll take ivermectin to prevent them from getting the symptoms. There are a lot of advanced ways that you could have taken preventative measures. Now, if I got this type of health insurance where I can't just go to like what we got right now, one, you can't just go to the doctor, or if you ain't got no money, right? You're not about to just go to the doctor. Let me schedule this $30, $45 doctor's appointment to tell the doctor I want some medicine that I have to take in advance, that I want to take in advance, that even though I'm not sick yet, or the doctor then says, well, you're not sick. We don't have the supply. And so I can't prescribe it to you. Or depending on what the medication is, it could be even too expensive without a prescription. Because maybe they'll say, oh, look, man, or the insurance won't cover it because you don't need it. It's just preventative stuff. You never know. Like health insurance is that bad. But like in this particular scenario, in this very specific scenario, you telling me Medicare for all wouldn't have made a tangible difference when the ACA is attached to your job, which means your healthcare is attached to your job. And if 15 million people lost their jobs, which means they probably lost their health insurance, don't you think they're putting themselves in a predicament? If they get COVID, if they think they have COVID, they're probably not going to go to the hospital. They got to go on about their lives. Because I'm not going to go put myself in an incredible amount of debt for something I might have. If I do have COVID, well, I'm still not going to go to the hospital until I'm absolutely about to die, which sometimes, depending on your situation, can be too late. The infrastructure to take care of this many COVID patients would have already been put in place. The way that we saw people, hospitals even, jump on the care. So the CARES Act, the way that the hospital funding worked is that you get more money if someone died of COVID and if someone died of COVID on a ventilator. This is fact, not fiction. This is the way it was working. A lot of these private health, hospitals, they're private. And what I mean by that is they accrue debt. They have a red and a green that they're trying to opt. They're trying to get out of the red to get back into the green. But the ACA basically has almost every hospital in the country operating out of the red. Now, if you're on the business side of the hospital, because there are people who take care of the straight business stuff, all of a sudden, I see an opportunity to get back into the green, because there were billions and billions of dollars appropriated where all I have to do is check a couple of boxes. So now there had been some false positives reported, like in Orlando, there were a case where 20,000 false positive tests. It was either false. They were both false positive and false negative tests. All of a sudden, you're incentivized to give people ventilators, even if they don't need one, which endangered people's lives. And it was to get the money. But if we had universal health care, if we had Medicare for all, there would be no financial crisis within our hospitals for our government to then prey on, and the insurance companies to then prey on by incentivizing them to give ventilators in situations where they may not need it, to say someone died of COVID where instead they actually died of a car accident, right? So, or like a motorcycle accident. In Jackson Memorial Hospital at University of Miami, the press accidentally said that someone died of a motorcycle accident when they said, oh, well, what was the other cause of death? Because they said the person had died of COVID. They said, oh, what was the other cause of death? Like, how did you know? Oh, they died in a motorcycle accident. But they are incentivized, and you'll never know. We'll never really know. We'll never really know if that person had COVID. But because you don't know, I can check that box. Because I can check that box, I can get the money. Medicare for all makes it so that there would have been no financial burden on these hospitals, where they would have had to try to recoup on all the losses they've taken because nobody can afford health insurance. So now everybody goes to the emergency room. You have the infrastructure in place that allows people to go not only take preventative measures for COVID, but also keep up health and wellness just preventatively throughout their lives. So you would decrease the likelihood of getting COVID. And if you did get COVID because you were taking care of your body and making sure that your health and your wellness is all good to go, you'll have a better chance of survival if you do get it. There's a reason there have been plenty of athletes that have caught COVID over the last year or so. None of them died. Most of their symptoms only last like a week because they're healthy, generally speaking. I don't understand how Sam can make arguments like that. There's no material, there's not really any material gain for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic. Come on. Then he said, what did he say? I was with it, I thought it was a good idea, just generally, maybe for other things like the pay-go exemptions. Pay-go exemptions were garbage. I mean, they were just for COVID stuff. So it was kind of irrelevant. Well, I mean, for other things like, okay, anything, Sam? Do you know anything? Anything else that we could have gotten that we didn't get? No, you don't. If you don't think, like, you think about it like this, bro. If you can't convince someone like Sam Seder to support a movement for accountability over Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, if you can't convince him to support that, ladies and gentlemen, what exactly is Sam's purpose in this movement? What is Sam's purpose of being a leftist? Because you will not convince him to fight for literally anything. The man didn't even fight for Bernie. Didn't fight for him. Just cashed out by uncritically kissing his ass. And then, of course, because he's really establishment adjacent. I feel like Sam is the establishment himself. But whenever Bernie did things that align with the establishment, now Sam gets to defend him, and everybody's like, well, Sam's establishment, so I expect him to defend him. But that people who are looking for excuses for somebody like Bernie or AOC, of course they're going to get excited when they see Sam defend them, because now the person with the biggest platform just gave an excuse, so now I get to use the same excuse. Now we all using those excuses to defend people who are politicians and not your friends. They're all using excuses for why these people don't use their platforms to uplift movements, genuine movements, not these 501c4, profit machines like the Working Families Party and Sunrise Movement have become, and a lot of these organizations have become that. Snork Y2K, National Single Payer Health also reduces your auto renter's property and business insurance due to not having to award large sums for lifelong care. That's true. Also, it increases productivity at work. Having healthcare increase, having really good healthcare absolutely quantifiably increases your productivity and attendance. These are facts. My friend is a unemployment risk management consultant. She has literally invented software to study stuff like that, and she gave everybody in her company healthcare. She paid for everything herself. The company paid for everything, and fought to be able to do that under the ACA. And the reason why was because she was like, I mean, it's the right thing to do, of course, but also there's a monetary incentive to give people healthcare if you're a business. Because I need you to be at work. I need your kids to be healthy so you're not missing work to take care of them. There are a lot of reasons where the only ones who are helped by us not having healthcare are literally the pharmaceutical industry and the health insurance industry and the people who are paid by both of those industries to make sure we don't have healthcare. That's it. Those are the only people. Am I right? Yes, I am. I cannot stress enough how important it is that Brie brought Sam on to prove in front of the entire world over a 3-hour period how full of shit Sam Seder is. Not just Sam, but can we all agree? Obviously, this would be an assumption, but can we all agree that it's probably a safe assumption that most of the forced to vote people, their arguments sound a lot like this. Correct? It sound a lot like Jimmy. Oh, it wouldn't have worked. Which, by the way, we don't know if it wouldn't have worked. We don't know that. He says that he doesn't believe that it would have actually gotten passed. I say we don't know that. That's an argument that I would make. I would say if they're so confident, somebody actually said the same thing, something relatively similar to this on Twitter, but the person on Twitter said if Nancy Pelosi, or if forcing the vote and taking it to the floor would have hurt the Medicare for All movement, Nancy Pelosi would have made sure it hit the floor and got voted on. She would have absolutely made sure. I agree 100%. 100%. Now, my theory is that we actually have no idea if it would have actually failed. And because we have no idea, so the reason we have no idea if it would have actually failed is because we are in the middle of a pandemic. And there was a grand effort to make sure it didn't get taken to the floor again. AOC and these people ran cover for the establishment for the entire forced to vote movement. If it's going to fail and y'all are confident it's going to fail, why not take it to the floor? If it's going to, once again, if Nancy Pelosi thought that it would hurt the movement, then she would have taken it to the floor, but she did not. In the middle of a pandemic, you do not want on your record that you voted against universal health care. When 70% of Fox News viewers support this, which are obviously conservative, and 90% of Democrats support it. Because you don't want that blemish on your record at a time where politicians are being ridiculously scrutinized, you probably would have voted yes and asked questions later. Because, hell, let's be real, right? These people don't read bills anyway. They don't read bills. They just voted on a 5,000 page of bullshit after not reading it. So it's not like they read the bills. They're not going to argue with you about details. But they know it's something called healthcare bill. Don't even call it Medicare. Just a healthcare bill, single payer, gets across their desk, and they vote no. That's their ass. And if, in my humble opinion, that is what Nancy Pelosi and the establishment are worried about. It's not that it won't pass. Is that they have no choice but to vote yes. And in the pharmaceutical industry they take money from, and the health insurance industry that they take money from, will make them feel it. They'll make them feel the flame for voting against it and run somebody against them. And mind you, it would be very easy to run someone against these people because, well, they've already kind of made it solidified that you can rig the election in any way, form, or fashion. except for in cities or states, well, I guess mostly cities at this point, that use mandatory paper ballots. So like they can run somebody against you and you probably would lose if the Democratic power brokers were behind the other candidate. So you're putting people in a position to have to vote for Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, while the Democrats have the House and have the Senate and have the executive branch. They probably would have voted yes on single payer health care. That's why. Sam didn't even know how the voting worked. He didn't understand like, I'm not expecting everybody to be an expert. But like, can you at least understand how the voting worked on the issue that we're discussing? Gannibal of 21st century, Medicare for all won't furlough nurses and hospital workers during pandemic. Hospitals won't be closing, fact. Focus on profit, but on people. Oh, not focus on profit, but instead on people that need help during the pandemic. 100% check, 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 and check. And also, once again, probably because they would be incentivized to, the government would be incentivized to stop spending on overly expensive healthcare resources, like because if they're paying for it, right? Because the single payer healthcare will be the government ultimately paying for it. They would be in a position to now negotiate pharmaceutical prices even lower. They would stop being so restrictive on medications that hit over the counter quicker, or they should hit over the counter quicker. There's some things that don't hit over the counter, not because you can't take them, but because there's a company still making hundreds of millions of dollars off of it every year. I cannot like people who, once again, you have to have done, some people, either you've done extensive research, which is fine. There's a lot of people who have done that, or you've worked in some part of the healthcare industry or worked in healthcare policy at some point to understand there are like not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are hundreds of ways that a single payer healthcare plan that had already been implemented would have saved us from experiencing a lot of the ails that this pandemic has brought along. How many people are going to lose their house from a healthcare bill this year, or from a lack of healthcare this year? That alone. I want to show you this tweet real quick. I put it in here just because it's so funny. I just wanted to show. Plus, I like showing off some of my people that. So you can see here, this is a libqn32, so libqueen32. Anyone checked in on Sam Seder yet? How is he holding up? Yeah. It was that bad. It was that bad though. It was. This once again, just another instance of why, AOC exposed herself on her ridiculous anti-forced to vote arguments recently when she used the arguments for forced to vote as the excuse why it was okay for her to go in on join the impeachment, right? So she exposed herself. Sam exposed himself not only with this one, but even said that basically because the Moving Forward People's Party was they realized that if the Dems didn't force to vote, and if the squad didn't participate in forced to vote, that it would make the Democrats look bad. Like, because of that, Sam was like, oh no, I'm so glad I didn't join that movement. Well, God knows I don't want to make the Democrats look bad. That's so mean. Bruh. Ben Dixon got exposed. The great unmasking continues, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I said, I'm not gonna show all the clips, but I just had to show that main one, and we'll show it one more time in case you joined up here later. We'll show that clip one more time before we move on, because Lord baby Jesus, if you didn't get to see it, it's worth it.
You should look at the clip. You should watch the clip.
So I don't want to talk about stuff that is not germane to this issue and is not being represented on the book.
You asked me why I didn't get involved, and I'm telling you.
That is fair. We're all very clear that you personally don't think that Jimmy Dore is a worthwhile vessel for this. You think that it's worth throwing away.
I think he was using it in a destructive way,
right.
and that
Jimmy Dore was using it in a destructive way, and it tainted it. So, what I'm saying, and I hear you. I think that everyone understands your point of view.
I think the argument that you're having with everybody about Jimmy Dore is proof of my that he tainted.
I'm trying desperately. Can I tell you to stop talking about Jimmy Dore, because 15 million people lost their health insurance this past year, and I can't get you to focus on that issue for more than 5 minutes.
Hey, no, because you want. Listen, you should look at the clip. You should.
Like I said, man, you can see Brie. She for the entirety of the Bernie campaign, Brie was able to resonate like down here. She was good. She was, just vibrating down here, putting up with a lot of bullshit. Brie's right here. She's up here with us now. She understands. She is right here. The level of I don't give a fuckedness where Brie is at. Brie is right here with us now. We get it, Brie. We really do. We completely understand why you're so pissed off and why you're so frustrated, and we support you. Thank you for doing the world a service by crushing Sam in that debate. Now, I want to move on to the next topic. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. And before we move on to the next topic, don't forget, if you want to support the show, you can become a Rockfin Premium subscriber by scanning that QR code, endorsing our Rockfin channel for $9.99 a month. But once you endorse our premium channel, you actually get everybody's premium content. That includes myself, Jimmy Dore, The Convo Couch, Kim Iverson, Richard Medhurst, Harlan's Media, Facts on the Ground has now entered that space. The Slow News Day and the Assange crew are still over there. Lee Camp is there. Graham Elwood is, the list does really go on. There are a lot of brilliant minds on Rockfin now. And if you endorse our channel, then you can watch any of their premium content. So you might even be able to cancel your Patreon subscription and save yourself some money. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying that it's a good way to save some money. So with that being said, I do want to move on to the next topic. There is some weird stuff that's happened recently. I don't know if you all recall. Some people are new to the channel, so I don't expect you all to recall it. But if you have been on this channel for a long time, then you remember, I would say pretty frequently, the only reason that I would want Joe Biden to win is because once he does, all of a sudden, and I do mean all of a sudden, reopening, the idea of there would be no demonization of reopening the economy, a bit more scrutiny in how we go back to work, and largely put a lot of narrative. They didn't like Trump and then tried to expel him on treason. People, they were coming up with, it looked like we were having some issues. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can figure out what's going on while I was buffering.